The Golden Boy just threw his Judgment Day brother under the bus. What we witnessed on Monday Night Raw wasn't just a match, it was the most disgusting display of cowardice and selfishness we've seen from Dominik Mysterio since he stabbed his own father in the back. While JD McDonagh was getting absolutely demolished by the Bulgarian brute Rusev, where was Dom? Standing on the outside doing absolutely nothing. This wasn't ring psychology, this wasn't strategy, this was pure, calculated abandonment that is WWE Universe questioning everything about the Judgment Day's so-called brotherhood. And if you think I'm overreacting, stick around because the footage I'm about to show you will have you throwing your phone across the room in pure rage. The setup that nobody saw coming. Let's rewind to how this disaster unfolded. JD McDonagh, the Irish ace who has been busting his tail for months trying to prove himself worthy of the Judgment Day, finally got his opportunity to shine against Rusev in what should have been a routine victory. McDonagh had been talking for weeks about wanting to show Rhea Ripley, Finn Balor, and yes, Dominik Mysterio, that he deserved more respect within the faction. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is something WWE commentary completely glossed over. Dominik was specifically assigned by Rhea Ripley to watch McDonagh's back. This wasn't optional. This wasn't a suggestion. Mommy gave Dom a direct order, and what did he do? He turned it into the most pathetic display of fake loyalty we've ever witnessed. The match started exactly as expected. McDonagh came out with his usual cocky swagger, playing to the crowd while Dominik lurked at ringside looking like he'd rather be literally anywhere else. And that body language? That should have been the first red flag. When your supposed brother-in-arms looks more interested in checking his Instagram than watching your match, you know you're in trouble. Rusev's dominant destruction. Now let's talk about what Rusev brought to this match, because the Bulgarian brute was operating on a completely different level. From the opening bell, it was clear that Rusev had done his homework. He wasn't just there to collect a paycheck, he was there to send a message to the Judgment Day, and more specifically, to expose their weaknesses. The first sign of trouble came when Rusev countered McDonagh's signature springboard knee trembler with a thunderous spinebuster that shook the entire ring. McDonagh crashed to the mat like a sack of potatoes, and you could see the panic in his eyes as he realized he was in way over his head. This wasn't the JD McDonagh who had been talking tough backstage, this was a man who suddenly understood he was about to get the beating of his life. But here's what makes this even more infuriating. Dominik was right there. He was positioned perfectly to create a distraction, to grab Rusev's leg, to do literally anything to help his Judgment Day brother. Instead, he stood there like a deer in headlights, watching Rusev methodically dismantle McDonagh piece by piece. The Bulgarian brute wasn't content with just winning, he wanted to make an example. Every suplex was delivered with extra violence. Every strike was meant to inflict maximum damage. When Rusev locked in that brutal submission hold, you could see McDonagh desperately looking toward Dominik, silently begging for help that never came. The moment of ultimate betrayal, and then came the moment that has the entire WWE Universe talking. With McDonagh trapped in Rusev's devastating accolade submission hold, writhing in agony and on the verge of tapping out, the cameras caught something that WWE production probably wishes they hadn't. Dominik Mysterio, instead of being focused on helping his teammate, was literally checking his phone. I'm not making this up. While JD McDonagh was getting his spine compressed by one of the most punishing submission holds in WWE, Dirty Dom was scrolling through his messages like he was waiting for an Uber. The disrespect was so blatant, so obvious, that even the most casual WWE fans in attendance started booing him specifically. McDonagh, showing the heart of a true warrior, refused to tap out despite the excruciating pain. He clawed toward the ropes, inch by agonizing inch, his face turning red from the pressure of Rusev's devastating hold. And where was his backup? Where was the man who was supposed to have his back? Dominik was now engaged in what appeared to be a full conversation with someone in the front row, completely ignoring the fact that his teammate was about to pass out from the pain. The finish that exposed everything. The end of this match wasn't just a victory for Rusev, it was a complete exposure of the Judgment Day's internal dysfunction. As McDonagh finally succumbed to the accolade, tapping out in defeat, the camera work told the real story. While Rusev celebrated his dominant victory and McDonagh lay motionless in the center of the ring, Dominik's reaction was absolutely telling. There was no anger. There was no frustration. There wasn't even disappointment. Dominik Mysterio looked relieved that the match was over. He casually walked over to check on McDonagh with all the urgency of someone picking up their dry cleaning. No sense of responsibility. No acknowledgement of his failure. Just a shoulder shrug and a my bad attitude that has perfectly summarized his entire character arc since joining the Judgment Day. But the most damning evidence came from the post-match footage that most people missed. As McDonagh was helped to the back by WWE officials, clearly struggling from the effects of that brutal submission hold, Dominik was caught on camera actually smiling while talking to someone backstage. Not a sympathetic smile. Not a nervous smile. A genuine, "I'm glad that's over" smile that proves this wasn't an accident or a momentary lapse in judgment. The Judgment Day's crumbling foundation. This incident has exposed what many of us have suspected for months. The Judgment Day is built on a foundation of sand, and Dominik Mysterio is the crack that's going to bring the whole structure down. Think about it logically. When has Dominik ever truly sacrificed for his teammates? When has he ever put the Judgment Day's success above his own comfort and safety? The answer is never. From day one, Dirty Dom has been the weak link, the member who takes shortcuts, who relies on others to fight his battles, who disappears when things get tough. Remember when he conveniently developed injuries right before big matches? Remember how he always seems to find excuses to avoid the most dangerous spots? This isn't loyalty, this is opportunism disguised as brotherhood. Rhea Ripley has been covering for him for months, making excuses for his behavior, trying to maintain the illusion that the Judgment Day is a cohesive unit. But what happened to McDonagh is proof that Dominik's selfishness is becoming impossible to hide. How do you trust someone who won't even pretend to have your back during a standard televised match? Finn Balor has to be questioning everything right now. The Prince has built his career on loyalty and brotherhood, values that mean everything to someone who came up through the independent wrestling scene. Seeing Dominik treat McDonagh like disposable trash has to be eating away at Balor's faith in the Judgment Day's future. The deeper conspiracy, but here's where this story gets even more twisted, and this is something that's going to blow your mind. Multiple sources backstage are reporting that Dominik's failure to help McDonagh wasn't accidental, it was calculated. Word is spreading through the WWE locker room that Dominik has been secretly threatened by someone within the company, someone who wanted to see McDonagh fail and knew that Dominik was the perfect weak link to exploit. Think about who benefits from McDonagh looking weak and vulnerable. Think about who gains power when the Judgment Day appears fractured and unreliable. The pieces of this puzzle are starting to form a picture that's going to shock the entire WWE universe when the truth finally comes out. Some insiders are suggesting that Dominik has been promised a singles push in exchange for sabotaging his teammates. Others believe he's being blackmailed with embarrassing footage from his personal life. But the most disturbing theory is that Dominik is planning his own exit from the Judgment Day and wanted to leave McDonagh weakened and isolated for his eventual replacement. The locker room reaction, the backstage reaction to this incident has been absolutely explosive. Veterans like Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes are reportedly disgusted with Dominik's behavior, with sources claiming that several wrestlers have privately expressed their concerns to WWE management about his unprofessional conduct. McDonagh himself has been eerily quiet about the situation, which is almost more concerning than if he had immediately called out Dominik publicly. Wrestlers who stay silent after being betrayed are usually planning something much more devastating than a simple confrontation. The Irish Ace has a reputation for being methodical and calculating when he's been wronged, and his silence suggests he's preparing for a response that's going to leave Dominik regretting his cowardice. But the most telling reaction has come from the women's locker room, particularly from wrestlers who have worked closely with Rhea Ripley. Multiple sources report that several female performers have approached Ripley to express their concerns about Dominik's behavior, suggesting that his actions are starting to reflect poorly on her leadership of the Judgment Day. What this means for the future: the implications of this betrayal extend far beyond one failed match. This incident has potentially set in motion a chain of events that could completely reshape the Judgment Day and create new storylines that will dominate WWE programming for months to come. First, McDonagh now has every reason to seek revenge against Dominik. The Irish Ace has proven he can be ruthless when motivated, and being abandoned by a teammate is exactly the kind of personal betrayal that transforms allies into bitter enemies. Expect McDonagh to start targeting Dominik specifically, looking for opportunities to make him pay for this humiliation. Second, Rhea Ripley's authority within the Judgment Day has been seriously undermined. How can she maintain control of a faction when her hand-picked enforcer openly defies direct orders? Mommy's reputation for being able to keep the boys in line has taken a massive hit, and that weakness could attract challenges from other women's division stars who see an opportunity to knock her down a peg. Third, this opens the door for potential new members to join the Judgment Day, or for existing members to leave entirely. If the faction's internal structure is this unstable, it creates opportunities for outside wrestlers to either exploit their weaknesses or attempt to join a group that's desperate for reliable members. The Rusev factor. Let's not forget that Rusev walked away from this situation as a major winner, and his dominant performance has put the entire roster on notice. The Bulgarian Brute looked absolutely devastating against McDonagh, showcasing a level of intensity and technical skill that reminded everyone why he was once considered one of WWE's most dangerous competitors. Rusev's victory wasn't just impressive from an in-ring perspective, it was a strategic masterpiece that exposed the Judgment Day's vulnerabilities while positioning himself as a legitimate threat to anyone in the company. By dominating McDonagh so thoroughly, Rusev has essentially issued an open challenge to the rest of the Judgment Day, daring them to step up and face the consequences of their teammates' cowardice. The Bulgarian Brute's post-match interview was particularly telling. When asked about Dominik's failure to interfere, Rusev simply smiled and said, "I expected nothing less from a coward." Those 7 words might seem insignificant, but they represent a complete psychological victory that goes far beyond the match result. The social media explosion. The WWE Universe's reaction on social media has been absolutely nuclear, with hashtags like #DominikCoward and #JusticeForMcDonagh trending worldwide within hours of the match. Fans are not holding back in their criticism of Dominik's behavior, with many calling for his immediate removal from the Judgment Day or even his release from WWE entirely. The most viral clip from the incident shows Dominik checking his phone while McDonagh is trapped in the Accolade, and it's been viewed millions of times across all platforms. Fan reaction videos are flooding YouTube, with content creators expressing genuine anger and disgust at what they witnessed. This isn't the usual manufactured outrage that WWE sometimes generates, this is real emotion from fans who feel genuinely betrayed by a character they had started to invest in. Even celebrity WWE fans have weighed in on the controversy, with several high-profile Twitter accounts calling out Dominik's behavior and demanding accountability. When mainstream attention starts focusing on a specific incident like this, it usually means WWE management is taking notice and planning significant storyline developments in response. The ultimate question. So here we are, WWE Universe, facing the ultimate question that's going to define the next chapter of Monday Night Raw. What happens when the foundation of brotherhood that holds a faction together completely crumbles? What happens when trust is shattered so completely that there's no possibility of redemption? Dominik Mysterio's failure to help JD McDonagh wasn't just a momentary lapse in judgment, it was the moment that exposed him as the selfish, calculating opportunist that many of us suspected he had become. His actions have consequences that will ripple through WWE for months to come, creating new enemies, destroying old alliances, and setting up conflicts that promise to be absolutely explosive. The question isn't whether Dominik will face consequences for his betrayal, it's how severe those consequences will be and who will be the one to deliver them. Will it be McDonagh seeking personal revenge? Will it be Rhea Ripley cleaning house to restore order? Will it be Rusev continuing his campaign of destruction against the Judgment Day? Or will it be someone completely unexpected who sees this chaos as their opportunity to strike? One thing is absolutely certain, the WWE landscape has shifted dramatically because of what happened on Monday Night Raw, and Dominik Mysterio is about to learn that actions have consequences in the most painful way possible. The Golden Boy's days of hiding behind others and avoiding accountability are officially over, and what comes next is going to be absolutely brutal. Make sure you stay tuned, like and subscribe to our channel, ring the notification bell for more updates.